Chapter 256, The Purpose of a Game. If it was just tyrannical ambition setting a dungeon record, then no one would be amazed. After all, the big guilds were going all out at Line Canyon's dungeon tonight. No guild would let this opportunity go by. And even though tyrannical ambition had suffered under a bit of mockery due to Lord Grimm's subbing in, it didn't affect their fundamental strength. The fight for the dungeon records was as competitive as ever. Every guild understood this, so they weren't surprised that tyrannical ambition's name was up on TV. But after seeing tyrannical ambition's time, they couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. 27 hours 41 minutes and 24 seconds. In the past few days, Line Canyon's dungeon record had occasionally changed, but it was always only by a few seconds. When the first place team's record was only within 5 seconds of the fifth place team's record, it indicated that the record had reached a certain limit. Tyrannical ambition's record this time though gave the other big guilds a fright. Compared to the previous record, their record had improved the time by a full 2 minutes. Was this actually tyrannical ambition? Quite a few players had their doubts and checked the team's roster on the leaderboards, searching hard for Lord Grimm's name. Everyone failed to find it, though. Tyrannical ambition. It was the real tyrannical ambition. All of the big guilds had a spy network. They had information on the 5 tyrannical ambition names. They were true members of the guild. However, with a sudden move, they actually improved the time by 2 minutes. Normally, it was very rare for players to leave room for improvement for dungeon records. After all, these required perfect playing. A single small mistake could even cause them to restart. And this type of mistake wasn't something that they could avoid. Everyone made mistakes. As a result, whenever it was time to set a record, every team would go at it their hardest. Whichever team could achieve the most perfect run would set the final record. But tyrannical ambition's record showed that they had the strength to beat the record by over 2 minutes, which they hadn't shown until now. 2 minutes was a lot. Making up for this time with a few less mistakes wasn't easy. In tyrannical ambition's run to achieve the record of 27 minutes, if they had made mistakes here and there, then they probably would have been in the 28 to 29 minute range. But they didn't. Previously, there hadn't been any records under 29 minutes. Tyrannical ambition's record was truly astonishing. Was it something they were always capable of doing, or was it because they had run the dungeon perfectly? Even if they knew the answer to this, it was pointless. From now on, all the guilds would have to attempt to beat this record. 2 minutes after tyrannical ambition set their record, new records began showing up on the leaderboards. 2 guilds had surpassed their previous records and one of them had even entered below the 30-minute mark. But compared to 27 hours 41 minutes and 24 seconds, the 2 records were too far off. They obviously wouldn't be shown on TV, they could only silently take the second and third place. No one could deny their efforts, but the greatest applause would be reserved for those who took first place. The second, third, and even the fourth and fifth places would increase a guild's reputation a bit, but they couldn't compete with those who took first place. First place and second place were sometimes only off by a second. But the titles, first and second, made others feel that the distance between the 2 placers was miles apart. The guilds had all done their research on how to run the dungeon. They all knew just how difficult it was to achieve 27 hours 41 minutes and 24 seconds. When tyrannical ambition's record came out, 1/3 of the competitors immediately gave up. Another 1/3 continued to run the dungeon as planned, but none of them knew if they could achieve such a record. They could only pray towards the heavens. Apart from this, the remaining 1/3 clenched their teeth and continued to batter at the records. They felt that there was no reason they couldn't achieve tyrannical ambition's record. Herb Garden, Excellent Dynasty, Samsara, the guilds that had allied against Lord Grimm didn't give up. This wasn't a coincidence. These guilds had clearly spent much effort chasing down Lord Grimm for the benefit of all. Just by looking at how they joined in on such a movement showed their desire for the records. How could they give up now? 27 minutes. The elites from every guild stared at the number. 27 to 41 by tyrannical ambition. It looks pretty good, Tang Ru noticed it the instant the announcement was made. She remembered most names of the guilds she had encountered. In the beginning, she hadn't taken them seriously. But after chatting with Chen Guo, she discovered that these were all top-tier guilds in Glory. Chen Guo, who had been playing the game for a long time, was more clear on how strong each of the guilds was. All in all, Yishu hadn't played in the normal servers for a long time, so he was picking up a lot of new things as he played. Tyrannical ambition was extremely strong. Yishu had never said this, but Chen Guo had talked a lot about them. Even though Tang Ru couldn't see how tyrannical ambition was strong, since Chen Guo said so, she should just listen. It's okay, Yishu wasn't too impressed with tyrannical ambition's record. If it was us, how fast could we do it? Tang Ru asked. 25 minutes, Yishu said. Are we going to try now? Tang Ru asked. Midnight was the high point for running the dungeons, so it wasn't convenient for them to cause a commotion at this time. There were guild members everywhere at this time. It was very likely that if they were found entering a dungeon, they'd be surrounded as soon as they exited. It had taken them 10 minutes to arrive and some more due to caution. As a result, the guilds had already finished running the dungeon once and had just entered for their second try. Seeing that tyrannical ambition had set a relatively impressive record and seeing that Yishu hadn't talked about the records, Tang Ru couldn't help but ask. There's no need for us to set records anymore, Yishu said. Why? Tang Ru asked. Because competing for the dungeon records was never our goal. Think about why you play the game, Yishu said. The simple phrase had stumped Tang Ru. Yishu didn't care if they weren't going to set a record. Setting records was just a way for him to gather uncommon materials. He now had other ways of gathering materials, so he didn't need to clash against the other guilds for the record. With his identity, if word came out that he was competing against these normal players for the dungeon record, then he'd become a laughingstock. Yishu didn't care. Su Mucheng obviously didn't care. Chao Yifan's motivation didn't need to be spoken of either. He came to the new server for personal instruction from a god-level player. After playing with the god for a few days, he already felt he had made a lot of improvement. In the beginning, he wasn't used to playing a phantom demon, but he was becoming more and more familiar with it now. Dungeon records? Chao Yifan obviously didn't care about these. He was still a pro-level player. His reason for coming here was to improve. Beating some normal players couldn't be considered as any improvement in his eyes. And consequently, only Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion cared a bit more about these records. Steamed Bun Invasion was more pure. He liked to play the game and he played for fun. With his good attitude, he always found something fun about the game. Setting a record was one of them. But without it, there were still many other things to enjoy. In the end, the only person who really cared about the records was Tang Ru. This girl was extremely competitive and liked the feeling of competing and surpassing other people. Just as expected, while the others were indifferent about Tyrannical Ambition's record, Tang Ru asked more about it. Purpose. Yishu's question had made Tang Ru feel at a loss for words. To beat you, after a few moments, Tang Ru blurted it out. It was the original reason she had played Glory, the game she hadn't found interesting. The game had a lot of content, but Tang Ru's original reason hadn't changed. Whether it was in dungeoning or PK, she frequently paid attention to Yishu's Lord Grimm, constantly comparing each other's performance. Even though she was getting more familiar with the game, she only felt how large the gap between them was. This didn't make her dispirited, though. She first had to figure out where their differences were and how great the differences were. To her, it had only just begun. The ever-impulsive and rash Tang Ru had already gotten rid of the idea of continuously challenging him until she beat him. She was now preparing a plan to surpass him. She learned from Yishu while watching the distance between them. She would then fix whatever she needed to fix. Tang Ru had her own plan in mind. She wasn't like Steamed Bun Invasion who said this and that and stupidly laughed. Tang Ru didn't relax when she played, which was very different from Steamed Bun Invasion's playing for fun. However, for Tang Ru, this was what made her feel that the game was fun. If it was something that was just for her to relax, then she'd only feel bored. After reminding Tang Ru her purpose for playing the game, Yishu then casually said, "Then why are you setting records?" Chapter 257, Appropriate Handling. Why am I setting records? Tang Ru didn't know the answer. The question stumped her. Wasn't Yishu the one who brought them over in order to set records? He had even made them undergo practice every day for each of the dungeons, yet he's suddenly asking why she's setting records? Why were you setting records? Tang Ru asked back. I was doing it for uncommon materials. Everyone knows that. What about the rest of you? Yishu asked again. To learn from senior and improve, Chao Yifan replied without any hesitation. Ha ha ha, playing with senior's more fun, Steamed Bun Invasion said. Ha ha, Su Mucheng only laughed. She didn't say anything. Mew Mew, Tang Ru tried to win over a comrade in arms. The two were quite close with one another. Su Mucheng could only say the truth, I did it to help him get materials. The cruel reality was displayed in front of her eyes. No one on the team had really cared about the dungeon records. It's still dungeoning. Even if we just casually said it, it'd be good too, Tang Ru struggled. That's true, Yishu said, but in our current situation, if we continue to monopolize the records, then those others' guilds won't stop bothering us. It's not worth it to get caught up with them. Yishu brought the discussion to the main point. This was his true reason for not setting records. With his experience and skill, he wasn't scared of the threat from these guilds. If he was only playing the game for fun, he probably would have chosen to play around with the other guilds. But that wasn't the case. Even if he killed all of the players from these guilds, what would be the point? There's nothing wrong with setting dungeon records, but in our current state, the result from setting a record would just cause us to waste a great deal of our time. We aren't scared of these guilds, but fighting with them isn't our reason for playing the game, Yishu said. Senior, I find stealing their bosses to be quite fun, Steamed Bun Invasion energetically said. Steamed Bun, this is only the new server. Stealing these low-leveled bosses is too unstylish. Let's hurry up and level. When we get to the heavenly domain, there will be more bosses and more experts. The guilds over there will also be stronger, so you tell me, doesn't that sound more fun? Steamed Bun Invasion replied, and after thinking for 5 seconds, he yelled, let's hurry and level up, everyone. Tang Ru was speechless. This steamed bun was a little bit too easy to sway. Yeah, let's hurry and go to the heavenly domain, Yishu said, while sending Tang Ru a personal message, our boss is waiting for you there. This guy? Tang Ru was startled. Her treatment towards Chen Guo, due to playing like crazy, really was a secret worry of hers for these past few days. She wanted to play with Chen Guo, but the two were in different servers. Even if they sat together, they were still only playing on their own and couldn't party up with each other. Yishu looked as if he was even more crazy about the game than she was, but he was still able to pay attention to all of this. The guy had been trying to reason with her at first, and now he was trying to play the emotional route. However, it really was a good point. After hearing all this, Tang Ru discovered that her desire to level up grew stronger. Setting dungeon records or whatever had been pushed to the back of her mind. Tang Ru thought for a bit and then replied, okay, then let's hurry and level up. Good. That's what I wanted to hear, Yishu said. We've got to level up quickly. Everyone dungeon faster, Tang Ru yelled. Wah, Yishu stared stupidly. Leveling faster did mean that they should dungeon faster, but didn't dungeoning faster mean that they would be trying to set dungeon records? He looked at the following message and saw an evil smiley face from Tang Ru. Yishu knew that she was intentionally teasing him. He replied with a sweating face. Try hard. It doesn't matter what your goal is, Tang Ru replied again. You have to try harder. Your goal is to beat me, but the difficulty is too great. After some time, Yishu received another message from Tang Ru. I looked for a long time, but there's no emoticon that describes what I'm feeling right now. Ha ha, Yishu laughed. He was finally able to get her to accept it, and his opinion of her went up. This girl wasn't someone who only acted on her own. Tang Ru didn't reply, but Yishu was still busy typing. As he dungeoned, he continued to chat with two people. One of them was Concealed Light. His newly issued Idiot's Guide had been received quite well, but there were still quite a few criticisms. One of the commenters had even criticized him without even looking at the guide. Concealed Light looked at the comments the entire day. He would even argue with some of them, and all that came out of it was concealed anger. He was now pouring out his grievances at Yi Shu. There will always be people like this. You don't need to worry about them. Your guides don't have any mistakes in them, and if they don't believe that, then it's their fault, Yi Shu replied. But some of them clearly hadn't read it, yet they still criticized it, Concealed Light gloomily said. If they didn't even look at your guides, why are you even looking at their comments? Yi Shu said. I only found out after I finished reading their comments, Concealed Light said. Yi Shu didn't know what to say. Why was it that this kid so one-track minded like steamed bun invasion? If they didn't see your guide, then there's no point taking note of their comments, Yi Shu plainly said. Sigh, Concealed Light sighed. God's words had made him feel a bit better, but his anger wouldn't go away so easily. Concealed Light told Yi Shu that he agreed with him, but still couldn't help looking at the comments. But it's true that your guide hasn't reached its limit, Yi Shu messaged again. It's not your fault. With your circumstances, it's already incredible that you've reached such a level. It's very difficult to come up with something new only by watching videos and reading other guides. Coming up with something new requires actual experience and testing, which are two things you lack. I made a revised version of your guide that you should take a look at. Your version? Concealed Light asked. Yeah, Yi Shu said, while sending Concealed Light his version via QQ. Concealed Light immediately received it and quickly looked at it. He then replied, so you could do it like that. I should have thought about that. Of course you'll suddenly see it now, Yi Shu said. Concealed Light continued to look, while discussing with Yi Shu. How do you usually level up? Yi Shu asked Concealed Light. Quests. You can't find anyone to party with, Yi Shu asked. Summoners, especially new summoners, have a hard time finding parties. When summoners fought, if they summoned too few creatures, their damage would be too low. If they summoned too many, however, their control over them would be poor, and then it'd only become a mess with the other team members, which was extremely irritating. As a result, fewer and fewer players liked summoners. In the end, it caused so many summoners to stand outside the dungeon entrance that they earned the nickname Dungeon Guards. Yeah, Concealed Light replied, confirming Yi Shu's assumptions. Actually, for a 5-player dungeon, summoners have the ability to solo it. Even though it'll definitely be a lot slower than it would be with 5 players, your experience gain will be a lot greater. If you get good, your experience gain speed won't be any lower than one person in a 5-man party. Yi Shu possessed the skill to solo a 5-man dungeon with any class. But for a normal player, summoners were good for soloing. I've tried it before, Concealed Light replied. Most summoners would research how to solo a dungeon. Some were able to persist while others failed. Concealed Light seemed to be in the latter category. In a bit, if you have time, I'll bring you along for a run, Yi Shu said. With Concealed Light's mechanics, Yi Shu reckoned that soloing probably couldn't be done. That's great. Thanks, God. Concealed Light was naturally very happy. He then asked, God, are you planning on posting your version? No, it's for sale. I'm selling it to those guilds who are setting records to earn some materials, Yi Shu replied. Ha, too good. So keep it a secret for now, or else it won't be valuable anymore. I understand, Concealed Light replied. He was able to understand the guide, so naturally he understood the guide's value. Even though Yi Shu had only changed the guide a little bit, it was clearly much better than it was before. If people wanted a guide for setting a record, then Yi Shu's was the real deal. Chapter 258, Guide Easter Egg. While Yi Shu talked with Concealed Light, he was also privately chatting with someone else. Misty Castle's 10th server guild leader, Hazy Mist, immediately sent Yi Shu a massage after seeing Tyrannical Ambition's record. Brother, can we beat 27 to 41? The guide can, but can you? Yi Shu replied. It seems not too likely. Hazy Mist was quite honest. You have to beat it. Right now, everyone's watching the record. It's your time to shine, Yishu said. If we don't set it, can we return it? Hazy Mist asked. I already said no, Yishu bluntly said. Half. Stop bothering me, brother. Ah, tyrannical ambitions too fierce, Hazy Mist condemned. If you still have time to be sad, then hurry up and gather some experts to practice what the guide says. Where am I supposed to find people this late at night? And also, your guide uses a certain class setup. I still haven't gotten the team together yet. Impossible. You're lying. I don't believe you can't form a team with such a large guild like yours, Yishu said. Alright, I was lying, but it really wasn't easy to get them together. Is there anything else tricky about it? Hazy Mist asked. None. There really isn't any. It's all in the guide. There aren't any focal points in the guide? Yishu suddenly understood and replied, so that was what you were asking about. Why didn't you just say it? Yishu had been wondering what Hazy Mist wanted. He didn't think that they would suddenly be so close after only talking with each other once. You've already seen through it? The guide has a few focal points. As long as you do those well, then you might not need to follow every step exactly. If you take those focal points and integrate it into your familiar strategy, then it should work, too. How many of these focal points have you found? Yishu followed up. For these top-tier players, they already had their own step-by-step method. They didn't really need such a detailed guide. 7, Hazy Mist said. Which 7? I've highlighted them in the file. Can I send it to you to look at? Sure. Hazy Mist quickly sent it over. Yishu opened it. The focal points Hazy Mist had found were all the new revisions Yishu had done on Concealed Light's guide. The ones Hazy Mist had highlighted were all correct. He had found the most important parts of the guide. These 7 are correct, Yishu replied, but there are still 2 more. I've highlighted them and sent it back to you. Go and take a look. Okay, thank you, Hazy Mist replied. This was the reason he had contacted Lord Grimm. When he first looked at the guide, he had noticed a few different points. He then talked about it with the guild and found these 7 focal points. But he was worried that they hadn't found them all, so he ran to ask Lord Grimm. Hazy Mist received the file and then went silent. However, after a short while, Hazy Mist suddenly sent another message, D*, Minnesota. A record came out. Where? Yishu didn't see any announcements. He opened up the leaderboards and it was still tyrannical ambition at the top. In the 7th server, Holy sh*t, Hazy Mist sent a going crazy face. What's the time? Yishu stifled a laugh as he replied. He obviously understood that Misty Castle wanted to practice using the guide and try it out, but they didn't want to waste the tries in the 10th server, so they went to a different server to practice. It hadn't been easy for Hazy Mist. To be able to gather up the people and borrow accounts in under an hour was a testament to his ability. However, they had only been practicing and they had already set a record. If they had known that it would happen like this, then they wouldn't have gone through the trouble of practicing. 26 hours 11 minutes and 45 seconds. Not bad. If you brought that over to this server, then you'd shake the server. Are there any reactions on the 7th server? Yishu asked. We earned the idling headache achievement, Hazy Mist replied. In the old server, setting a low-level dungeon wouldn't garner much attention. Come to the 10th server and run the dungeon. Who knows if we'll be able to do it this run? I don't think there will be any problems, Yishu said. The record they had just set couldn't have been from following the guide step by step. There was no way they could follow and fully understand such a long and tedious guide in such a short amount of time. No one could do that. But the guide was fixed, while people were creative. By grasping the focal points of the guide and then applying it to their regular strategy, that was the most efficient method. Misty Castle's experts clearly understood this. They quickly grasped the focal points and combined Yishu's new guide with their usual strategy to break the record on the 7th server. I hope so, Hazy Mist replied. He seemed very worried, but in reality, he wasn't worried at all. After finding out how incredible the guide was, he was already full of confidence. As he chatted, Yi Shu continued to dungeon. They weren't pursuing a record, so they weren't so tense. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion did their limited practice, while Chao Yifan practiced fighting in different scenarios. After Tyrannical Ambition's record came out, a lot of discussion was brought up by normal players. Many guessed when Lord Grimm would come out and stomp on the record. A lot of players were even betting on how much he would beat it by. This run took them 33 minutes, which was very ordinary. But so far, Yi Shu didn't see any new announcements. After a short while, Hazy Mist sent another message saying that they had failed the first run. You can do it, Yi Shu could only encourage them. It'll definitely come out tonight, Hazy Mist was extremely confident. Yi Shu reckoned that the guy had gathered more than one team. They probably had 6 or 9 tries. The dungeoning continued. Yi Shu calculated the time and guessed that the guilds should be done with their 3 runs. Yi Shu checked the leaderboards. The second and third place spots had been changed, but Tyrannical Ambition was still in first. Yi Shu wasn't surprised by this. The competition was fierce, but Zhang Yu's group truly did stand out from everyone else. News of the guilds began appearing in the world chat. After running the dungeon 3 times, a lot of the guilds had hit level 34 and were currently congratulating or bragging to each other. And after this, they were going to compete for the Fire Forest first clear. A first kill wasn't as amazing as a dungeon record. But if they still had the chance, it was still worth going for. The members who had just reached level 34 gathered together and left Line Canyon. Zhang Yu's group should have been part of this group. But unfortunately, after being killed by Lord Grimm twice, their experience had decreased and they were still stuck at level 33. However, seeing that their record wasn't even close to being beat, the 5 felt very happy. Chapter 259, Misty Rain. 12/24, 2:03 a.m. Tyrannical Ambition's overall guild leader, as well as the other famous top-tier experts that he had brought over, gave their final blessings after struggling in the 10th server's pioneering battle. Zhang Yu's group had come to set the record in order to save Tyrannical Ambition from their predicament. At the same time, they had unexpectedly also resolved the Lord Grimm problem. They took down Line Canyon's dungeon record without a hitch. Their mission had been quite successful. Even after running the dungeon 3 times, they still weren't able to beat the record that they had set at the end of the first run. Once they had finished, their mission ended. The reason that they were staying for a while longer was to celebrate with the 10th server's players and also to see whether Lord Grimm would keep his promise to not touch their record. At this moment, over half an hour had passed since they had exited the dungeon and there hadn't been any announcements. They had all relaxed. Lord Grimm hadn't beaten their record and hadn't set a ridiculous record beforehand, nothing bad had happened. Okay, the 10th server will now be in your hands, Zhang Yu said to the 10th server's guild leader, Cold Knight, and its core members, such as Endless Night. The 4 elites that had come over were all old core members of Tyrannical Ambition, so the guild members that had come over to pioneer in the 10th server knew them. The 4 were talking with members one-on-one, encouraging them. Just as the friendly ceremony was proceeding, an announcement suddenly popped up. Tyrannical Ambitions hadn't noticed it in the beginning. It was only after the announcement had passed by did they realize what the announcement was about. Not good. Practically everyone realized this simultaneously. In that instant, Tyrannical Ambitions players all made the same movement. They moved their mice in order to check their messages and read the message that had just been received. But in reality, they didn't need to. While Tyrannical Ambitions players had been distracted and missed it, the other 10th server players had all seen the message clearly. The players who had seen it already then began to discuss it amongst themselves. The discussion had caused Tyrannical Ambitions players to miss the announcement message. But right now, the discussions in the world chat were all talking about what they didn't want to see. A new record. They saw these 3 words. Tyrannical Ambitions players hadn't seen wrong. In that instant, a dungeon record announcement had been made. Their excited and joyous guild suddenly turned deathly. Correct, deathly. Even though everyone was sitting in front of their computers looking at their screens, they had all felt as if their souls were leaving them. Doubt and disbelief floated in the air. Who was it? Zhang Yu suddenly asked. His words were full of bitterness and pain. Who was it? Wasn't that an easy thing to check? If a record had come out, then it would show up on the leaderboards. However, Zhang Yu seemed to have forgotten this and didn't go and check. Why? Did he not want to see a particular name on there? Zhang Yu didn't look, but others did. Misty Castle, Cold Knight said, carrying a hint of disbelief. However, it was true. He had checked the name 3 times. It really did say Misty Castle. Misty Castle? Zhang Yu repeated the name in even greater disbelief. Misty Castle. It was true that the guild was backed by a club, but tyrannical ambition rarely saw that guild as an opponent. Misty Castle along with Team Misty Rain were strange entities. They were actually quite good, but their strength was always neglected by others, which seemed to be because of their temperament. Their temperament was greatly influenced by their ace player. Team Misty Rain's ace player was a girl. She was a girl who loved to watch all sorts of random Twilight-type TV shows and loved to talk about random gossips. Of the 20 teams in the alliance, Team Misty Rain was the only one whose ace player was a girl. Of course, Chu Yongshu's skill level wasn't low at all. As the team's ace player, she was good enough to be considered one of the alliance's top-tier gods. But compared to male players, Chu Yongshu's performance never felt tough enough. In tense situations, her win rate was very low, and in those matches she lost, many saw that it appeared as if she had modestly declined to fight it out. In those matches, it appeared as if she should have been able to continue for a bit longer, but for some strange reason, she always silently lost. No one knew if this was due to her temperament or personality. But as a result, a lot of people on the outside said things like, "She's just a female player, after all," in order to explain it. Esports was different than traditional sports, where players directly competed with their bodies and physical strength. As a result, it seemed as if males and females were on equal grounds in esports. But because girls generally weren't interested in these types of intense fighting games, there were a lot fewer female players in esports than males, and their skill levels were usually worse than male players by quite a bit. Chu Yongshu was a rarely seen female god-level player. But because of this reason, a lot of people thought that she lacked competitiveness. Ace players often decided the team's style and their temperament. Thus, Team Misty Rain was seen as a team that lacked competitiveness. Their achievements reflected this as well. After Chu Yongshu joined the team, Team Misty Rain had entered the playoffs 3 years in a row. But no matter how amazing they performed in the regular season, they always lost miserably in the first round of the playoffs. Team Misty Rain didn't seem to fit in with the playoffs' serious and fierce competition. In their first playoffs, maybe it was because they weren't experienced enough. But the second and third time? They couldn't always use a lack of experience as an explanation for everything. Thus, Team Misty Rain and its players were labeled as such. Since the team was relatively ignored, their in-game guild was ignored as well. Misty Castle wasn't small by any means, and they had many experts, but they never looked outstanding when competing against others. Perhaps it was because they weren't performing well, or perhaps it was because they didn't even try, but their rare good performance usually lasted only for a brief period or sometimes didn't even appear. Soft. Too soft. That was what many players saw Misty Castle as, which suited the team as well as their ace player, Chu Yongshu. But since Chu Yongshu was a girl, everyone understood if she was a bit softer than others. The guild was mostly filled with males, yet they were also soft, making a lot of people look down on them. Tyrannical ambition, on the other hand, was different. From their ace player to their team to their guild, they possessed tyrannical strength and a strong character. Yet they had unexpectedly been stomped on by the soft Misty Castle. This type of dramatic development was too hard to accept. Misty Castle? Impossible. Zhang Yu's voice suddenly rose. He personally checked the leaderboards. The first place name really was Misty Castle, and their record, 21-to-78. Tyrannical ambition had stepped on the entire server's records by 2 minutes, and now, Misty Castle had stepped on theirs by 2 minutes. Zhang Yu's complexion changed. He, who had personally researched the low-level dungeon, had no idea how Misty Castle had beaten their record by a whole 2 minutes. Quote, "Are these players actually from Misty Castle?" Zhang Yu tried hard, but didn't see Lord Grimm as any of the 5 players' names. Perhaps they had invited a few experts to sub in? Or maybe some recently retired pro players came to mess around in the new server? They're all from Misty Castle, Cold Knight confirmed after looking at the leaderboards. Their characters might be, but the people playing on them might not be. How shameless, Zhang Yu said. Cough, Cold Knight coughed in embarrassment. Zhang Yu heard the reminder and then immediately felt even more embarrassed. He had played in the 10th server with this elementalist, crowd lover, for too long. Zhang Yu had even forgotten that he wasn't the original user of the character. He was also one of those shameless players. Luckily, besides Cold Knight, no one had noticed Zhang Yu's error. Everyone was still dumbstruck by Misty Castle's record and began looking at the world chat. They all wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Right now, ignorant noobs were saying, tyrannical ambition is so bad. The record they set didn't even need to be beaten by Lord Grimm. Misty Castle? What guild was that? A lot of naive players didn't know of Misty Castle's background. They took the guild to be a small guild that showed tyrannical ambitions and ability. And a lot of noobs believed it all, discussing just how weak tyrannical ambition was. Weak. Even when tyrannical ambition had their team wiped out, no one ever dared to call them weak. The experts were furious. Everyone in the guild was furious. Not waiting for their guild leader's orders, tyrannical ambition's players had already begun arguing with these players on the world chat. Zhang Yu's group watched in pain. Their guild's players had clearly come off worse. Those noobs' words had clearly pricked their skins. There was nothing they could say. They had no grounds for an argument. Their first kill and record had all been done with Lord Grimm's help. And their hard-earned record had been crushed without the help of Lord Grimm by some random guild. Misty Castle was just some random guild. Tyrannical ambition really wanted to cry. How were they going to argue against that? Chapter 260, Returning to Desolate Land. Tyranny brawls. Tyranny falls. Tyranny's record just got mauled. Amidst the arguing, a poetic verse suddenly appeared. The attackers cheered and began to chant the verse over and over again. Quite a few players continued the poem and the world chat exploded into a poem competition with tyrannical ambition's demise as the main topic. Traditional poems, rhyming poems, limericks. All sorts of poems were presented. How could tyrannical ambition's players not be angry? Zhang Yu couldn't stay calm. He opened his messages and took note of the player who had written the starting verse. Spearless. Shut your mouth. If you have the guts, 1v1 me in the arena or out in the wild. The loser eats his account card. Do you dare? Zhang Yu was the guild's main leader, so his words and actions represented the guild. He hadn't acted independently in a long time. But since no one recognized him in this server, he stopped caring and went directly to the world chat to fight with the attackers. The loser eats his account card was a slang in Glory, which meant delete your account in the early days of gaming. Not long after Zhang Yu issued the challenge, the player named Spearless replied, Tyranny brawls. Tyranny falls. Tyranny's record just got mauled. Zhang Yu wanted to pull out his hair, but his world chat messaging was still on cooldown, so he pushed someone off their computer and typed, Do you dare 1v1 me? If you don't dare, then shut your mouth. This time, the other side had his world chat messaging on cooldown, so he was quiet for a while. But once the cooldown came off, the other side immediately repeated, Tyranny brawls. Tyranny falls. Tyranny's record just got mauled. F***ck, Zhang Yu was about to go crazy. The people nearby saw that he was angry and didn't dare utter a word. But in their eyes, Zhang Yu's actions were quite childish. As the guild leader of one of the 3 great guilds, he was actually arguing with some random noob. That was too shameful. This random noob looked to be quite experienced as well. By repeating his annoying message over and over again, he succeeded in making Zhang Yu more and more furious. Guild leader. Calm down. If you get angry, it'll be your loss. Everyone finally surrounded and consoled him. Calm down? What's the use in calming down? The record's been stepped on again. What am I supposed to do? Zhang Yu roared. The players, both inside and outside of the game, heard him. True. What were they supposed to do? They all looked at the attacks on the world chat as if they were eating a bitter fruit. Right at this moment, Yishu's group finished their 3rd run. Compared to others, they had used almost an hour more. Almost all of it was due to running and hiding. When Misty Castle's record was announced, Yishu saw it and immediately received a message from Hazy Mist, asking Yishu for Fire Forest's guide. I'm still studying Fire Forest. There's no rush. You should go to Fire Forest and gather some materials, or else, when I come out with the price, I won't be able to help you, Yishu replied. What's your asking price? Hazy Mist asked. That depends on how things turn out, Yishu replied. How evil. Are you planning on revealing that our record was only achieved because we bought your guide and then having the other guilds scramble over it? I don't agree with you, saying that I'm evil. But the rest of it is true. It's not a false advertisement. After a short moment of silence, Hazy Mist messaged again, then can we have priority? I can give you a priority price, Yishu said. Quote. During this time, the poem competition had begun and student Zhang Yu had already leapt up to fry the noobs. Tyrannical Ambition's enemies took out their popcorn and watched in glee as the events unfolded. Steamed Bun Invasion read Spearless's verse twice and laughed out loud. As for Yishu, he didn't have any sort of reaction. As someone who was once in the pro scene, he was used to being opponents with the players on stage and being friends with the players off stage. Of course, friend was more of a polite term. Some of these players were considered friends if they ever nodded their heads as a greeting. That meant that they wouldn't bring their rivalries on stage, outside the stage. What are we going to do next? Tangru asked. After giving up on setting records, the girl deliberately ignored new of records. She was afraid that if she kept on looking at the records, she'd want to set one. We'll go to Desolate Land's dungeon, Yishu said. Desolate Land? Isn't that place that's inconvenient to go to? Tangru doubted. It's different now, Yishu smiled. The previous level 33 players have hit level 34, which means that a lot of players, who were previously under level 30, have now entered the level 30 domain. That meant that there will be more players at Line Canyon, no? If you say it like that, then I guess so. Tangru looked left and right. So you're saying that a lot of players from Desolate Land have now gone to Line Canyon, which means that Desolate Land is now empty? It's not empty, but the danger level has lessened, so we can go and take a look, Yishu said. We'll be leaving then. Su Mucheng and Chao Yifan prepared to leave. Everyone said their goodbyes. Yishu privately messaged Su Mucheng, we're not going to be setting records, so you don't need to play so diligently. I want to play though, Su Mucheng replied. Okay, if you want to play, then go ahead. I'll be leaving then. Go ahead. After the two went offline, the rest of the group cautiously exited Line Canyon. Outside the canyon, Yishu called for concealed light. The four partied up and headed towards Desolate Land. After setting the record for Desolate Land, Yishu hadn't partied up with Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon for quite a while. Even though they still talked with one another, after being involved with the big guild's pursuit, Yishu didn't want to call them over. He was afraid that they'd get caught up in it too. While level 33 players were reaching level 34 and level 29 players were reaching level 30, Yishu's leveling speed had slowed down. They still hadn't broken through, so Concealed Light was actually winning in this regard. His level 32 summoner was the highest level among the four of them. Wheel Dungeon is a party of four. Concealed Light, play with us for now and I'll have you practice when I find an opportunity, Yishu said. Okay, Concealed Light said. Who would have thought? You'd actually have the chance to get instructed by Senior. Senior, what qualifications does he have? I don't see it, Steam Bun Invasion said. His theoretical knowledge is solid. Even though he lacks actual experience, if you have nothing better to do, you should carry him along, Yishu said. You're really making things complicated for me, but if Senior says so, then I'll do it, Steam Bun Invasion reluctantly replied. He turned his head and majestically called, Hey! Little Concealed Light, from now on, I'm your senior. Come here and let me hear a senior. B** starred, how could Concealed Light act kind to Steam Bun Invasion? Oh my, the nerve. Do you dare 1v1 me? The loser eats his card. Steam Bun Invasion used the new knowledge he had just learned from reading the world chat. TCH, Concealed Light obviously couldn't agree and sent him a beneath me face. They continued to argue all the way until Desolate Land, where they entered a relatively quiet dungeon entrance. When they entered the dungeon, Yi Shu set up a plan for each of them. As a result, a weird scenario appeared. There were clearly 4 players running the dungeon, but it looked as if they were all doing their own thing. None of them were working together and one wasn't even fighting monsters. He was just standing on the side shouting and directing. This person was obviously Yi Shu. At this moment, he was mostly worried about Concealed Light. Teaching this guy was much harder than teaching Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion. After all, those two had solid mechanics. As soon as Yi Shu taught them something, the two would immediately learn it after practicing it 2 or 3 times. But Concealed Light was very different. Let alone, using summoned creatures to aggro monsters, block monsters, gather monsters together, surround monsters, etc. He wasn't even able to move 5 summoned creatures in one direction. Yi Shu was patient though. He continued to teach him, but Concealed Light was somewhat disappointing. Not long after, he was forced to retreat after accidentally aggroing a few monsters, forcing Yi Shu to help him out. Starting from 0 is truly difficult. Yi Shu sighed. Concealed Light, do you seriously want to improve your mechanics? Of course. On the internet, there are a few programs that can help you train. Have you ever tried them before? Yi Shu asked. I've downloaded a couple, but they're all too hard. Isn't it too early for me to do those? Concealed Light said. No. I'll send you some elementary ones. You should practice those slowly, Yi Shu said. Ah, really? Thanks, Senior. Concealed Light had argued with Steamed Bun Invasion for a long time, so he learned what Steamed Bun Invasion called Yi Shu. What did you call me for? Steamed Bun Invasion shamelessly joined in. *****, Concealed Light cursed. Thanks, God, he didn't forget to revise his previous address.